Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bouk and Zoobie show on the world famous LIR.com and 92.7 LIR.com. And now for the premiere episode on YouTube. I am John Calaboukas, the Bouk, with my friend Paul Zublake, Zoobie. So now we're moving up into the big time, Mr. Paul. People can actually see us.
Yes, I'm hoping that we're going over well and people are probably fainting from the sight of our faces, that we would try to do a video version of the Bouk and Zoobie show. Still available, of course, at the world famous LIR.com website and via Spotify.com. So it'll be the same thing, and we're going to put it on YouTube. And please search our show, follow the show, subscribe to the show, all those wonderful things, and hopefully this will work out, and adding in a little new phase as we approach our 50th episode, John, right? I think we're very close.
Very close to 1 year with our opinions, and we have been very open with our opinions and our predictions. And I have to say, the games that were on last week with the NFL, I am still steaming, absolutely steaming about that Lions game. I almost feel like driving to Detroit, and I'm not even a Lions fan. I like the Lions. I feel like choking Campbell, absolutely choking him for what he did in that game. I mean, think about what he did. So he had a chance to put them up by 3 scores with a field goal. He decided no. He failed on that. Then we need a field goal to tie the game, okay, with, 6 or 7 minutes to go. He fails at that. And then the worst thing of all is when they're trying to preserve their timeouts, they do a running play. I mean, this is some of the worst coaching I have seen in a long time, really long. I'm telling you. I feel really bad for the Detroit Lions fans because they really should have won this game. A lot of drop passes. Goff, again, what else could you say about him? He played an excellent game. He controlled the game. They just fell apart.
Yeah, they imploded. Goff is a great pocket passer, and when he gets outside the pocket, he's terrible. And on one of those 4th down plays, he did get outside the pocket, and he just threw it down the field and in nowhere land. So I guess you're going to start with the NFC, John. I was going to give you an option, like, where do you want to start? You want to go with the Ravens and there in the Kansas City game where it had its own drama, or do you want to start with the real dramatics? And you went right to it. I get it.
And by the way, that game, the NFC game, had 56.7 million viewers. Huge numbers for NFC, and AFC actually had 55 million. I mean, really huge numbers. That's the most watched game other than the Super Bowl.
That's fantastic. I mean, the NFL's on fire, despite sticking it to the fans whenever they can. Going back to the Peacock game quickly, they just left 30 million people not watching the advertisers. So they can reevaluate that. I think they're going to continue to go down that road. I wouldn't be shocked if they have 2 playoff games next year, but ultimately they want to get the 8 teams in and even cheapen it even more. So the NFL I think will eventually eat itself, but it's not anywhere close. The gambling is a big factor as well. And now you've got this other dynamic with the superstar entertainer involved. And then we'll get to that game in a minute. But I wrote a text to my friend. I said, imagine being a Lions fan, John, and your dreams went down the analytics drain. And that is really the theme of this, where us old school guys who don't need any algorithms or modeling of this stuff, because as you said, if any outcome is to keep a two-score game as opposed to going to 3 with a field goal, which in that range with conditions that were very ideal, you're talking about 70, 80% success rate on that field goal. These were not fourth and inches or fourth than a yard plays.
Yep.
That's another component.
Yep.
4th and 2, 4th and 3, where on both plays they threw the ball. Now, let's face it, Josh Reynolds had it in his hands. And you know how it works, John, when you make these kind of moves and it fails because of lack of execution, you're going to get killed. But it just showed that, as the old saying goes, when you throw the ball, two bad things can happen. One good thing can happen. One catch versus interception, drop pass, or even pass defense, you can argue. So I don't know how the analytics tells you to go for the touchdown in that situation. It just shows that whoever's created this model doesn't have the right variables in there. And that's your model as good as the data that you put into it. So they have to recalculate this stuff. And Dan Campbell can say he would do it again or all his bravado. But the bottom line is they're going home and they're not going to the big game.
And not only that, it is very difficult to get to the Super Bowl. Really difficult.
You're not kidding.
Right. And we should know as Jet fans. But he was even saying to his team after the game, you may never get back here again because everyone is going to go after you. That you have a target on your backs. And I'm saying, yeah. I said that makes plenty of sense. Why didn't you? It's just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Listen, with the first one to make it a 3-score game, that's one thing. But to say, well, we don't want to tie the game. Let's just go for it again. That was crazy. This is just not thinking at all. This is not thinking at all. Tie the game. And you have to remember also what comes into play here is they didn't score any points. Don't you think it would have been a confidence builder for the Lions to score some points early, whether for the 3 scores or tying the game? Give them some confidence. Imagine you don't have any points until the last minute of the game, which it doesn't even matter anymore.
Right. It was 24-7. They got a field goal, San Fran, to make it 24-10. You were in a perfect scenario to match that field goal to make it 27-10. There was no momentum after they made it 24-10 from 24-7. Very minimal. Once they missed the 4th down, the shift happened in momentum, and ultimately a crazy play happened. And it just seems that the Lions, along with our beloved Jets and the Browns, unfortunately, these type of things seem to happen to them on the absolutely unbelievable deflection off the face mask of the BB Vildor, where if the guy doesn't even go near it, it just hits the ground, and then Brandon Ayuk makes this really spectacular play to make that catch. That really was as bad as everything was up to that point. Ultimately, that play really started the crushing. And then Gibbs fumbling after a bad exchange where he fumbled. So they were just getting so tight. Josh Reynolds dropped another one late. And they imploded. I mean, the first half, their skill players were tremendous, except for, and then they just fell apart. And St. Brown was amazing in the first half. He didn't touch the ball until the 4th quarter. Laporta was fantastic. The running backs were great. But you have to give credit to the other side, too. And I think that's what people are forgetting about right now is that team did not give up. Brock Purdy made some back-breaking scrambles that really crushed him. He actually showed that he's a lot better athlete than people are giving him credit for. It's another point.
Yeah.
And he's just got a lot of poise. He's got moxie. He's got poise. And that was it. And the other, like I said, when Goff has to get out of the pocket, John, he's a mess. He's a mess. He's the polar opposite of the other side of the table, where we'll shift gears. We can go back to the line game whenever you want, John. But as Goff can't operate outside the pocket. What did we act? We did talk about this.
Yes, we
Keeping
did.
Lamar Jackson in the pocket, and somehow the Ravens allowed they really allowed the Chiefs to kind of dictate the game by falling behind. Where they had, and that was the first thing I commented to my buddy, who's a huge Raven guy. I said, where were the design runs for Lamar Jackson? Lamar
Yep.
Jackson, folks, is a runner. He is. He can occasionally throw from the pocket, but when he gets out of the pocket in unstructured play is when he's at his best. And the Chiefs kept him in the pocket. And if they could have actually tackled Jackson, they blew 2 sacks that led to big plays. It actually
Yep.
might have been even a worse deficit. But so Todd Monken, who's the OC with the Ravens, who's gotten a lot of positive talk about being a head coach candidate. Now, that's another story we'll get into a little later. You know, if your team's going to the Final Four in NFL, for some reason, nobody wants to wait for you as a coach, and you hire other teams' coaches who don't go that far. Make sense to me. But he really kind of hurt himself with that game plan because, in my opinion, he just let the Chiefs dictate to him how he was going to call the game. And don't try to outsmart him. Just that's it. Jackson, you got to have. I got to have 5 to 10 design runs plus the 5
Absolutely.
others that he's going to get out of regular, where he's scrambling out of a play that you want to throw, because you want to make some plays from the pocket. Don't get me wrong, but you got to get him loose. And I don't know what you thought about that game, but talk about implosion. The Ravens just self-destructed with lack of discipline. And
I was just ready to say that.
Right, getting goaded into making some really, really dumb decisions. And I mean, we all hate the taunting calls. And that was he's a rookie. Flowers, tremendous player, by the way. I mean, he learned a lot. I tell you, talk about a guy who learned a lot. He learned a lot, right?
Well,
Don't taunt, and do not, when you're near the goal line, do not reach the ball towards the goal line. As Bill Belichick always said, unless it's 4th down. Yep. That's when you do it. Never, ever. It would have been 1st and goal from the foot line if he just goes down. I mean, give the Chiefs credit for making the play, but the Ravens talk about, I don't want to say they gave it away because they didn't, because they fell behind early. But, I mean, the Ravens got to talk about kicking yourself. Between those two fan bases, they're sick, as he said.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the Ravens did shoot themselves in the foot. And Flowers, with his taunting, I mean, there was no reason to do any of that. But number 2, the rest of the team hitting the quarterback underneath the chin. I mean, I kept saying to myself, I'd love to know the IQ scores of everyone other than the quarterback on that team, because just crazy, stupid, really undisciplined penalties that really hurt them badly in that game. If you look back, I mean, crucial times during that game, they were just doing totally unnecessary penalties. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to prove you're a tough guy or something? Or you think that the referees are not going to see you giving a cheap shot to someone?
Yeah, and that's what the big thing on that 1st and 5 play, where they were like, okay, we're going to be smart. We're going to make it 1st and 10. But by the way, they could decline that penalty and keep it 1st and 5. But instead of just jumping off and try to see what would have happened, he drills the guard, Roquan Smith, who, by the way, is a great player, but dumb. And they gave him 15. And so that was one of the big ones. The Flowers fumble at the goal line was it, John. That was a killer. That
was a killer.
Them. It destroyed them.
That was a killer.
And then kudos to Mahomes and to Kelsey. A great game for Kelsey. Give him credit for all the insanity that's going on around him. He played a great game. And the defense played well. Kansas City, it's not the same team anymore, right? They actually have a very good defense. Justin Reed, the safety, had a huge game. Snead, the corner, excellent. By the way, he's a free agent. That's a guy that's going to make a huge amount of money. And it's kind of fun. We have to segue the Jets in some way. I will get them in a second, but they don't need a corner. But that would be a great. Somebody's going to pick up a good player, so maybe the Giants can sign him. So he played well. So kudos there. Chris Jones and Karlaftis, and actually Umena, who had the big strip sack, unfortunately tore his ACL and he's out. So
really?
Yeah, he's out.
I didn't know that.
He's done.
Oh, wow.
So they lost him again for the Super Bowl. This is not going to be the Super Bowl preview show, but just tough loss. But I have to get like a Jet piece in there because every game I watch has got to be some sort of thing that I can talk about that brings back the Jets. So I think this is actually kind of funny. So most people, if you watched right before the game started, they showed the little pre-kickoff festivities with the teams where Justin Tucker, his tee and his ball and his helmet were thrown. Did you see this stuff, John, where he threw Kelsey threw his helmet? So they had a little to do before the game. And then on top of it, they showed this. It was I think it was like 4 Kansas City guys and 1 Raven. And this is pregame where they're pushing and shoving. And I'm like, what the heck are these guys doing? So then the Raven is the immortal Arthur Millette. So people like, Arthur Millette? Who the heck is Arthur Millette? Well, Arthur Millette was an undrafted player that made it onto the Jets roster probably 3 years ago because he actually ended up going to Pittsburgh in between. Maybe it was pre-COVID, so it might have been before that. So I'm watching this, John, and I'm thinking to myself, who the heck does Arthur Millette think he is? That he is getting into a fight with the Kansas City guys before the game. Like, what is this guy doing? It's like, dude, you're an extra D-back, and you're getting into a fight. All right, so that happens before the game. So then during the game, Arthur Millette commits a big penalty. He gets injured. And then, John, on the last play of the game, and the Chiefs went for it, by the way, unlike certain, what team was it who just ran the ball 3 times, punted, and lost at the end of the year? I don't know if it was Jacksonville did it. I can't remember. Andy Reid knows, like, I can end the game. So they went down the field to Valdez-Scantling, right, on that last play.
Yeah.
Who was defending on the play in single coverage? Arthur Millette. So a little shout out to Arthur Millette for trash talking it and then ending up lying on the field after that play, knowing the season was over. Not to blame him, of course, but again, another lesson for these guys. Don't poke the bear pregame. I just don't get it. Stop it with this. It's nonsense.
Well, Kelsey actually was doing quite a bit of trash talking on the field. If you saw him, he was going at everyone. And I did not realize that he had so many catches in the playoffs. He has more than Jerry Rice. I mean, that was some. I mean, I had no idea. I mean, I knew he had a lot. I didn't realize he had some that he beat Jerry Rice. I mean, you think about Jerry Rice and what kind of receiver he was and how many playoff games and Super Bowls he was in. Just crazy. But Kelsey was really trash. He was trash talking away, going in people's faces, but he was backing it up.
And he was backing it up. That's what. Yeah, I don't think. You got to know it as a player, right? Where to draw the line, not to do something stupid during the game because it's going to cost your team. Pre-game stuff, that stuff is, I mean, it was with Justin Tucker, the kicker, but the other one where they were really pushing and shoving and looking for a fight, it's just ridiculous. It's just, again, why poke the bear? So I had to bring like a Jet tie in. My second Jet tie, it will become in our outside the league stuff because do you know where I'm headed on this one, John? It came out, I guess it was today or yesterday. The new offensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Is that, you know what I'm guided?
I know where you're heading. Go ahead. I'll let you head that way.
Now, when you see this stuff, you can't help but laugh because I'm not going to say I do not follow the assistant coaches in the NFL. What we do talk a lot about is how it is an old boys network, the coaching world, where basically with our wonderful offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett and the Paul Hackett misery. So when you see this name, Idzik, getting hired as the offensive coordinator, he's 32 years old. John, was that classic? So for every Jet fan out there who knows this, he is the son of the ex-GM of the Jets, John Idzik. So I just had to bring that up, John. I just thought that was the funniest thing of the day. I think, was it today or yesterday they announced that?
Well, what was announced today for the Jets is Jermaine Johnson actually is going to the Pro Bowl.
Right, but that's another thing. That's a pet peeve. I don't want to hear that, and don't get me wrong, I love Jermaine Johnson. I don't want to hear he's now a Pro Bowl player. Either make it or you don't, right? And you're an alternative to go play in a flag football game. I mean, it's embarrassing. So good for him. He gets to go. He's a good player. But, I mean, let's not now hear that Jermaine Johnson is a Pro Bowl player because as an alternate, somebody doesn't want to go to the flag football game. I mean, come on. I mean, give me.
Yeah, but you know what? If he has any clauses in his contract that says, oh, if you make the Pro Bowl, you get $150,000 bonus, that's worth it.
Well, I hope when they write these contracts, they make sure that the alternate doesn't count because some guy doesn't want to go. Now, ultimately, it's kind of ridiculous. You just cheapen the Pro Bowl out. And all pro is what really matters. That's the team you want to be on. The Jets ended up having two with Q and Sauce Gardner. So, great, good for them.
So we had some coaching changes, additions, retentions, I'll call it. So Nick Sirianni actually was able to keep his job after that horrendous ending of the season for the Eagles.
Yeah, which we said he was going to keep his job. Yep.
Yeah, Harbaugh ended up getting a 5-year contract with the Chargers, and it was pretty funny that they said when he met Herbert that he went gaga over him. I said, well, I'd go gaga too if I'm a great coach and I have that type of arm and that type of quarterback. I think the Chargers are going to do very, very well next year. They just needed like you've been saying it all year. I mean, you couldn't stand Staley. Just, they absolutely needed a coach there. And
no, they upgraded tremendously. That was a good hire. The Mayo hire I could live with. They know him. He's been a Patriot forever. I don't have a problem with that. The other hires, I definitely have a little problem.
Surprise.
Dave Canales getting the Panther job. I mean, maybe that's just like nobody wants that job. So was the OC before Brad Idzik. I'm sorry, Brad. I didn't get Brad's first name on the first time through. That's his first name. He took the job. I don't get that at all. I mean, the Panthers, they're a mess with the owner who's basically a GM. It's a mess, John. I don't think anybody wants to work for that guy. And then the other, I think we talked about it last week, right? Tennessee hired Bill Callahan's son. I don't get that one either. He was the OC who didn't call plays with the Bengals. And then Raheem Morris with Atlanta, who was already the interim there, and they're bringing him back. All right, he was the D coordinator for the Rams. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad coach, and maybe he'll prove me wrong, but you're not going to hire Bill Belichick because why? I don't understand. It seemed like a perfect situation. And if you believe what you read, Arthur Blank wanted to hire Belichick, but the other people in the organization talked them out of it.
Yep.
If that is true, and I know Blank's getting up there in age, it's bizarre because you figure since he is so old now that he would want to try to win right now. And I just don't get that move. And of course, the people in the organization don't want Belichick in there because he's going to want to run the organization.
That's correct. That's why they were trying to dissuade him is because they don't want to lose their jobs, because that's what would end up happening is he would take complete control and wipe them all out. And I'm saying, okay, what's wrong with that? The Falcons haven't really done much at all for a very long time. So now you're going to go with a former Hofstra graduate.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with Hofstra, but if it was my choice, you bring Belichick in. I mean, like you said, Blank is getting very old. I mean, I don't think he'll ever get over losing the Super Bowl to the Patriots the way they did, having that ridiculous lead. I mean, he was actually on, if you remember, he was actually on the field ready to celebrate with his, and then he would just watch them collapse. I mean, forget about the Lions. That was the all-time collapse.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, now, God, now you're opening some wounds there for those Falcon fans. So, not that there's too many of them, but so there's 2 jobs left. So, Ben Johnson, who's the OC of Detroit, pulls himself out of the running of the other jobs, which is Washington and Seattle. Interesting. When the iron's hot, sometimes you got to take those jobs because that can U-turn on you pretty quick. So, he's definitely taking a risk, unfinished business. That's what he's claiming. He seems to be a very good offensive coordinator. So, but if he's going to go for it on 4th down when you can get up 3 scores like his head coach, then I would almost not want to hire him. But that would be definitely a question I would ask him. Are you completely blinded by analytics where who cares that the percentage is 70-30? It shows that 30% of the time you're going to be wrong. So you got to understand the percentages. So those jobs are still open. Vrabel's still out there. Obviously, Belichick's out there. Dan Quinn allegedly was going to take the Seattle job until that terrible performance by the Cowboys. So supposedly he may be going back to Dallas because I just it's going to be very interesting. So maybe they are waiting for the Super Bowl team. So if you look at those coordinators, it's kind of interesting is that Wilkes is the D coordinator for San Francisco. Shanahan's basically the de facto offensive coordinator. I don't even know who the OC is for San Francisco. And then on the other side, you've got the Andy Reid assistants never can get. Everybody just thinks, oh, it's Andy Reid, right? So you got Spagnuolo, who has never gotten another chance. He was technically an interim with the Giants, but he only had the Rams job. He had a terrible 3-year numbers were terrible, but that was over a decade ago. He's the D coordinator, and the O coordinator is Nagy, who was the ex-Bears coach. So it is interesting because I always find it funny how these teams, especially like the Panthers, wouldn't you want to wait to the final 4 teams coordinators become available if you're going the coordinator route? Wouldn't you want to kind of go with the teams that had the most success? At least interview. I'm not saying you have to hire them. You can still hire Dave Canales. Who is running out there to get Dave Canales? So that hire is definitely, and even the Tennessee one as well. All those 3 teams, and so we'll mark this down, and we'll see where these teams are next year.
And the Jets still have Robert Saleh as their coach.
Right.
There's so much talent out there, and we are still stuck with this guy.
It is amazing.
It's amazing that Woody Johnson should have never made that commitment, at least to Saleh. Douglas, maybe you give him a little bit more leeway, but Saleh, we all know, is not a coach. He might be a good cheerleader. I know we've said it many times. For those of you who have not seen us on YouTube, we've been saying this ad nauseum, that this guy's a cheerleader. He is not a coach. He's not a coach. If you want to make him the defensive coach, just take him out of there. He is not a good coach at all. And we're watching all this talent go right by the wayside, right in front of our eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, we should grab this person. And
maybe
disgusting.
They're going to hire Ben Johnson in 2025, John. That's it. So Ben Johnson's going to be the Jets. We'll write that down. Ben Johnson, 2025. After the Jets implosion, which we'll obviously be talking about nonstop. The Giants are kind of in the same bucket. It's pretty interesting. Is Crazy Man Dayball, as I think I'm going to start calling him. He's going to get a lot of heat, John, if they're not doing well next year and he's going crazy. And Bill Belichick is like in the TV booth doing some pregame show. I guess they're going to have to get another seat on that Fox table. You think they got enough guys there? Maybe he'll Maybe they'll put like Belichick on Strahan's shoulders or something, or Gronk's shoulder. Actually, Gronk. What am I talking about? Put him on Gronk's shoulders, and so they'll have room on that table. I mean, these pregame shows.
It's incredible.
Show.
What I don't like, and unfortunately, they signed Brady to that long-term contract, but that kid Olsen is doing a fantastic job announcing. I mean, I'm pretty sad to hear that he's going to lose his job to Brady. Basically.
Well, he'll be on the second team. Olsen is okay. You like Olsen? I think he's a Jersey kid, like so him. I mean, he kind of never shuts up, but they all never shut up.
No, I actually liked him very much. I think he did a very good job. Let's see how Brady does in that. You never know. I mean, we've already spoken about that. That Carey is, those are our best announcers with, what's his name? I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought.
Troy.
Thank you. Oh, my God.
I think he just doesn't talk as much. I mean, I'm a type of person who kind of can watch a game on mute almost. I like the crowd noise. That's why I don't mute the TV. You can't hook up your radio with the TV. That never matches up. So you're kind of stuck with the guys because you do want to hear the noise. So what do you think? I mean, we didn't talk too much. I mean, we talked enough about those games, and we'll have our Super Bowl preview on next week's show. I guess I don't know if we're going to have a guest. We might not. I was definitely ready if the Ravens got in. I definitely had somebody lined up, but that went down in flames. So I don't know if we have any cheap 49er fans out there, John, who we can get on the show.
No, we will have a surprise guest, but we're not going to tell our audience who it's going to be.
Or me. Okay, there you go. Surprise guest. All right, it's coming. All right, good to hear. I'm excited. So so we talked the off the field stuff. Anything else in the NFL? I mean, this whole concept. Let's just quickly talk about it. It's fixed, rigged for Taylor Swift and the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl, and please.
That's ridiculous. Come on. That's ridiculous.
I mean, folks, honestly, come on, give me a break. This stuff is so ridiculous. The good teams get the calls, folks. If you're good, you're going to get the calls, irregardless of who the players are dating. So let's move on from that one. So I don't know if you want to talk about anything else in these games that you remembered. You want to talk about?
Well, just one thing. Actually, two things. Number one, this has been a very nice relationship from Mr. Kelsey, because if you notice how many more commercials this guy's been getting since he's been dating her. I mean, I always say it to my wife, because Taylor Swift's history of relationships with men. It's here today, gone tomorrow. So it's, and then she goes and then she goes and writes a song about it. So, God bless Kelsey. I say try to get as much as you can out of this relationship, because who knows? It's amazing how many commercials he's in. One thing that I'm going to mention, and I wish that people don't do this. So Bass, the kicker for the Bills.
Okay.
Poor guy has been getting death threats, and they had to actually have police guarding his house now.
I did not hear that. Yeah, really?
Yeah, he's been receiving death threats since that game. And I'm like, listen, the man is an athlete. He tried. We're not infallible. Leave the guy alone. Please, leave him alone.
Are you kidding me? I mean, those conditions are not easy. The guy was kicking in rough conditions.
I feel bad now that I was so critical of him, and the poor guy's getting death threats now. It's too bad.
Hopefully not listen to Bouk on the Bouk and Zoobie show. And I don't know how we've actually gone a while and we haven't mentioned a couple of names we have to mention. San Francisco. We didn't even mention the guys on defense, Greenlaw and Warner. Deebo Samuel, that guy's amazing. What a player. And Christian McCaffrey. John, that guy's phenomenal. Acquired for a third and a fourth round pick or something. Unbelievable. The guy is such a good player. Definitely have to mention those guys, and all four of them. So they're all great players. give him tons of credit. It seems, and we're not going to talk about because there's a lot you have to see kind of where the injuries land. I think it's a good matchup, John. It's definitely going to be exciting. Should be a really good game. We'll make our predictions next week with the mystery guest.
With the mystery guest, it'll be
So, John, we have so much areas to talk about, but we have to go right to the NBA, right? So the other winter sport we're not going to mention because they decided to go on hiatus again when in the middle of the winter. So is my annual bashing of Gary Bettman and the NHL. In January 30th, the dead of winter, ice hockey is not being played. I'll leave it at that. So let's get to the Knicks, John. I mean, you got to be, because I know you were riding high, and then Julius Randle goes down in a heap. I don't know what's they're saying, weeks, not months. Give us your view, John. What are you thinking as a Knicks fan, despite the fact that they did bounce back and beat a bad team? The long-term impact is they're gonna feel this.
It doesn't matter if it's 3 weeks or 3 months. Having a dislocated shoulder, Brunson had it, Stephen Curry had it. They generally, I'm going to use the word generally, have to have surgery after the season is over. They always say, oh, we may not need surgery. Yeah, they're still doing tests. When I hear that they're still doing tests on it, that gives me a big red flag, because if you can't see on an X-ray or an MRI and you have to continue doing more testing, that must mean that they see something that's more serious. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but there's no reason to do additional testing if you don't think that there's something wrong. So, yeah, he's going to be missed. And now we have Anunoby with an inflamed elbow that I think and that's been an injury that he's had in the past that's hampered him. People don't know that he gets injured. I mean, it's to the point where he does not go full seasons, even though it seems like he has a lot of stamina. It seems like he doesn't get hurt. He actually gets hurt quite a bit. So,
what's his status though? He's more day to day, correct?
Day to day. But again, when you see him, when he goes for the dunk, and I don't know if you've ever seen him dunk, he actually winds up. I don't know, someone that has an inflamed elbow can actually wind up over his head and boom, and that doesn't affect his elbow. I mean, if that's something that bothers him all the time, he shouldn't be doing that. Just lay it up if it avoids getting an injury.
So it's his shooting elbow. Is it his right side?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And he does the windmill dunks, and that's not obviously too bright. Yeah, those are two huge injuries. Obviously, if they're both out, they're dead. But Randall being out for the season, so you're thinking, again, I'm not putting you on the spot and you're saying that that's 100%. There's a chance he's done for the season.
No, I don't think he's done for the season. I think that he will come back.
And then after the season?
Okay. After the All-Star break, he'll come back, because the Knicks right now, between now and the All-Star break, have 8 games, and a lot of them are at home. But they're not against very easy teams. I mean, they're going to play Indiana twice. I mean, you're going to talk about run and gun. I mean, we really needed Anunoby and Randall to match up with Indiana. They have Utah tonight. They have the Lakers. Again, they should be able to beat those teams, even though they don't have 2 main players. But I think he comes back after the All-Star break, about a month. But I have a feeling after the season is over, he's going to need surgery. Like I said, I can't imagine that you're doing all these extra tests without an idea that you see additional damage somewhere. So we'll see. But someone that they did sign, they had to re-sign because they need depth, is Taj Gibson is back with the Knicks again. Yep. Again. And it's a shame. I mean, the Knicks are 13-2 since the Anunoby trade, 7 in a row. the only way they win is defense. When they play defense, it's great. I love watching Hartenstein, just the way he passes the ball, the give and go, the backdoor plays. It's really nice to see that type of basketball. I'm just getting tired of these shootouts. And I think I may have texted you where Doncic had 73 points.
Yeah, no.
You had Booker with 62 points, and they still ended up losing to the Pacers. I mean, just these crazy shootouts. And you mentioned it last week. It actually gets boring. I have to agree with you. When you have this scoring and they're just running up and down and there's no defense, this is not good basketball. But when you watch the Knicks play, Deuce, McBride, great defense. Hart, great defense. All these guys, DiVincenzo, excellent defense. All these guys, they're playing their hearts out. They're a really, really scrappy team, and I love watching them. When they play defense, that time period when they were not, it was awful to watch because who wants to give up 145 points to the Bucks? It's crazy, crazy.
All right.
So,
Well, it's a shame. I know that City was getting all fired up. It's far from over, but it's just a depth issue, right? It's not like they don't have ability without those guys. They do have talent. It's good to see. Yeah, DiVincenzo's having a great year. So yeah, Leon Rose, who is going to be the most unknown GM in the history of New York sports because he refuses to talk to the media, which I still don't know how that works. How is that allowed? But he's actually done a good job. So I think you're a huge Knick guy. I'm sure you don't care that he's not talking to the media as long as he's productive as a GM. We've had plenty of GMs who were horrific who talk to the media. So maybe it was time. So he's done a great job. He really has.
And the owner's not sticking his nose into. He's letting them run the team. He's letting Thibodeau coach the team. Keep your hands off. Do not touch this team. I don't care what superstar. He did it with if you remember that they could have gotten Carmelo Anthony as a free agent without giving up half the team like they did. If you remember that trade, it was ridiculous. He stuck his nose in it, and they ended up giving all these players that they actually all their depth. So just stay away from them. They're doing fine. And he has all the draft picks. He still can make some decent moves, giving up a second, maybe a first-round pick. I would love to get Bridges from the Nets. Oh, my God. When I keep hearing his name, man, give them a couple of first-round picks for that guy. I'll take him.
Well, it's going to be a lot of draft picks. I don't know how that's going to – but they have a ton of draft picks. They do. Bridges is a top player. The Nets are a mess, obviously. I know Ben Simmons came back. I mean, this is hysterical with this guy. So, yeah, the Nets are not even worth talking about. So anything else around the league? I'm just quickly looking at the standings here. It's funny when we're on video, there's a couple of things I guess I should point out is that, folks, I'm not drinking scotch, by the way, when I'm drinking here. So my Marco Rubio imitation, this is actually ginger ale, the wonder drug for the old guys. So maybe I'll do like a little. This is not scotch, if anybody's wondering. And if my eyes wander away from the camera, I am checking some standings that we typically do when we're not on video. So it is funny that we have to be adjusting a little bit, but it's not like I'm like studying the standings on the daily because you don't get the paper anymore, right, John? So it's not like the old days where you get the newspaper, you check out all the box scores, you would know what's going on. Now you have to go online to get everything. And sometimes it's just not as easy, right, as the paper. So I don't know. Knowing you probably still get Newsday delivered out there in beautiful County?
No. Everything's online. I read everything online, but I do read Newsday, the Post, Daily News, and Times. Believe it or not, all online.
Wow. There you go.
Online.
There you go. Well, that's what happens when you're a professor. All right. So anything else from the NBA you wanted to bring up? I mean, I don't know. Anything's jumped out at you.
Really quick. Wes Unseld Jr., they don't want to come out and say that they fired him, but they said they moved him up from coach to the front office. I mean, you talk about the Wizards. They played against the Knicks. They had zero organization. He was a terrible coach. I remember watching the game, and I'm like, what is this guy doing with this team? Just no direction, no anything, and they're going to move him up to the front office
Now,
or
here's
some
a
sell
stupid
jersey.
question. Is it his first year? Was it his first year or second?
No, no,
Is,
no, no, no. He was coaching last year, and they brought him in. They let him. Actually, I believe this is his third year with them,
oh, is
and
it?
they,
Okay. He was
yeah, yeah,
interim and then he got the full-time job and now, okay. I
yeah,
mean,
he
talk
was,
about a team I could care of, the Wizards. Oh my God. Yeah, sitting
and
at 9-37. Yeah, that's
yeah, no,
definitely
they're
not worthy
terrible.
of much airtime, but good for
Yeah,
good. It's like he's got a famous dad, so that's worth
yeah,
mentioning, I guess.
and one other. I don't know if you read this about Dejan Milojevic, the coach for the Warriors. If you heard about this, 45 years old, he's out to dinner with the team and has a heart attack and dies. He
Really?
was
When
he
did
was
this
hel-
happen?
this was last week.
Oh, I'm
Last
sorry. I
week.
completely missed that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, last week. And for those people who don't know who this person was, he was one of the top coaches in Europe, and they brought him over to help out the Warriors a couple of years ago. The players loved him. He was more of an offensive guy. And I've never heard of anything. It was a team dinner. They were out to eat, and he had a heart attack right at the dinner table. Crazy stuff.
Oh boy.
45 years old.
Sorry.
45.
Sorry to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah, yeah. So you want to go to MLB?
MLB, so it means it's time for baseball with Boop.
Bargain Basement Mets. We are going to continue to call them the Bargain Basement Mets. They let another well, actually, I have a list of players that signed that the Mets easily could have signed, but they decided not to. So today, Justin Turner signed with the Toronto Blue Jays. 1 year, $13 million. You don't think that the Mets could have put him right in their lineup for 1 year? You don't want to spend the money for 1 year? Terrible, terrible move. Uh, Reese Hoskins ended up getting a 2 year deal, which I thought this was an excellent deal for the Brewers. 2 years, $34 million. $17 million a year for a guy. Yes, he was out last year, but people forget he hit over 30 home runs. So why do people forget about Reese Hoskins? This guy's going to be probably hit 30 to 35 home runs if he's healthy. If he's healthy. The worst negotiating job in the history. Adam Ottavino turned down his option with the Mets earlier in the year, thinking he's going to get a multi-year deal. He had 1 year, $6.75 million that he turned down. He was just re-signed by the Mets for 1 year, $4.5 million. So you're talking about overestimating your worth. Paul, remember,
You did call it, no question.
I told you, I saw it on his face. He was on SNY, and he looked like a lost soul when I saw his face, and he knew that he had made a mistake.
But
Big
John,
mistake.
but one thing, John, if you really think about it, even though he obviously made a horrific, stupid decision, the fact that he's still getting over $4
Yes,
million at
it's
his
true.
age and his ability is so ultimately Adam Ottavino is still a winner. The Mets, I mean, this is just a comedy what's happening. I cannot wait for I'm actually looking forward to the baseball season just to see what happens with the Mets. Because what is City Field going to be like in May if they get off to a bad start? I can't wait for this. How are they going to play 162 game season and basically kind of try to sell that they're building and they're going to talk about Gilbert and Sullivan, and I know it's not Sullivan, whatever the other guy is, and that's what they're going to be talking about.
What are you making this into a musical group?
Right, exactly.
Gilbert
So
and Salt.
I
Well, let before I forget, so I
Yes.
want to you want to talk about outrageous contracts, and then I really want to go over. They actually have a Mets fan survey for 2024, and we're gonna have some fun with this. But first,
Okay.
let's just talk about these other outrageous contracts. So David Robertson signed with the Texas Rangers, 1 year, $11.5 million, 39 years old.
Yeah.
And
Still
he,
making it.
by the way, he actually negotiates his own contracts. He does not have an agent. He's been doing it his entire career. He negotiates his own contracts. Matt Moore, who had a total of 48 innings last year, 48, 1 year, $9 million.
For who?
James Paxton,
No, what team? What team though?
Angels.
Okay.
The Angels actually just signed Aaron Hicks, the retread from the Yankees, and the Yankees are actually paying $19 million to Hicks to play for other teams. It's amazing. That was a terrible signing by Cashman. Then you have James Big Game Paxton, the lefty, signed with the Dodgers, 1 year, $11 million. I mean, just crazy contracts, crazy. And then our good man Carlos Carrasco, minor league contract with the Guardians, and Yasiel Puig, believe it or not, got a minor league contract with the Rays. So for those people who are still out there, I think that they have overestimated their abilities. Unless Boris pulls something out of his hat again, you have some major players still out there with unsigned contracts. And guess what? Pitchers and catchers are coming in 2 weeks.
So yeah, so Montgomery and Snell are still available, correct?
So is Bellinger. Yep.
Right. No, but I'm
So
saying those from a pitching perspective, those two are
yes.
available.
Yep. And if I was Snell, the Yankees offered him a very nice deal. They offered him $150 million for 6 years. That's about right. $150 million, $25 million a year for Snell.
All right. He throws 5 innings every start. He doesn't even.
He wanted a 9-year contract for $270. I'm like, who's making up these numbers? No one's paying him that. He has one good year and then one off year. It's like every other year he has a lousy year or a good year.
But he doesn't pitch deep into the games. He never pitches deep. He pitches 5 or 6 innings.
And he walks a lot of people too.
I give up on baseball in a way. I mean, I'll still be watching, but there's just a part of it. It drives you a little crazy with these numbers. But that's just the way sports is now. They're making a lot of money.
So I'm going to read this Mets fan survey. And
let's see how the fan survey.
Okay. So they have all these different questions. Some of them are a review of last year, but I'll read it anyway. Okay. What was your favorite moment of the 2023 season? Okay. They give you, they have opening day, the West Coast trip in April, 5 straight 1-run wins in May, the comeback in Arizona as part of a July winning streak, or when the season ended. I mean, this is what they're giving to fans. This is ridiculous.
Well, John, explain this. John, let's just quickly explain. This is going to the season ticket holders, right? It's not like they put it out on X or something, right? So this is something they sent you via email, correct? Because you're a season ticket.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, keep going.
When did you check out of the 2023 season? I gave up during June. I gave up at the trade deadline. I watched until the bitter end. This is sent out to. This is crazy. How would you describe your level of disappointment in the 2023 season? I was stunned. I'm like, who's sending this out? I've never been more disappointed in the Mets. It felt just like the end of 2022 and 2021. Given that they were never in it, the disappointment faded. I'm optimistic about the reset around the youth.
That they gave you that many choices, okay?
Yeah. Do you think the Mets were right to fire Buck Showalter? It says yes. Yes, but David Stern should have waited a day to do it in person, or no? Why would they be asking this? What lesson should the Mets learn from 2023? They need to be younger. They need to be deeper. They need more pitching. They need more hitting.
Wait. All of the above? Where's all of the above?
How would you grade now they're more recent questions.
Okay.
How would you grade David Stern's first offseason as president of baseball operations? And they have A through F. How do you feel about the hiring of Carlos Mendoza as manager? How could they be asking this question?
But what are the choices? Give me the choices of these questions.
Excited, indifferent, disappointed.
Mets equals indifferent. Okay, that's what I'd be. That's my answer.
What do you think of the Mets offseason so far? It's actually more aggressive than I expected. It's exactly what I expected given the trade deadline. It's less aggressive than I expected. It's unacceptably quiet. I don't know what they're doing with these results here. If you can make one more move this winter, what would it be? Sign a top of the rotation starter like Blake Snell or Montgomery?
Oh, no, we don't want a top of the rotation starter. Why would we want that?
Sign a long-term deal for an established bat like Cody Bellinger or Matt Chapman?
They actually put the names of these guys in the question. This is beautiful.
Yeah. Sign a short-term deal with a DH like Jorge Soler or JD Martinez. They don't even mention Justin Turner here. This was like a couple of days ago. Sign another reliever for the back of the bullpen like Matt Moore or Phil Matone.
Matt Moore made it.
My God. So, okay. Now you're gonna laugh at these. We got a couple of more and then it's over. But this is is this not absurd? These questions are absurd.
Yeah,
if you could turn back time and make the Mets more aggressive on a free agent who's already signed this winter, who would it be? Shohei Ohtani.
Why would we want him? We don't want that guy.
Yamamoto, Sonny Gray, Eduardo Rodriguez, Josh Hader, Teoscar Hernandez, or other. I mean, just crazy stuff. Which free agent acquisition are you most excited for? So they have Harrison Bader, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino. Oh, and I don't know what that last thing, I can't even read that one. How do you want the Mets to approach a long-term contract for Pete Alonso? Interesting. Pay whatever it takes to make him a Met for life. Offer him market value and hope he takes it. Trade him for what you can get now before the season. Or trade him for what you can get at the deadline, even if the team is not contending. Interesting. What would you do?
Wow.
How would you answer that one?
Give me those four. I know. I'm sorry. Give me the choices again.
Pay for whatever it takes him to make him a Met for life.
Okay.
Offer him market value and hope he takes it.
Mm-hmm.
Trade him for what you can get now before the season begins. Or trade him for what you could get at the deadline, even if the team is not contending.
Well, of course, you're going to answer, you want to give him a market deal. That's what you would, everybody wants that. So you'd be insane to say, oh, pay him whatever he wants. That's ridiculous. So,
yeah.
And obviously we've already talked about this, is that they're going to trade him at the deadline if they're out of it. Yeah. And that's what's going to happen because they have to trade him if they're not going to re-sign him. So the decision to re-sign him should have been already made already, and the contract should be signed and done. He's coming off a bad year, so if his demands are outrageous, we don't know. We're not in the room. We can assume they are outrageous because of his agent. But since we're not in the room, how the heck can we answer that question? But to actually ask the fan base for their opinions about how they're running the team is very bizarre at best and desperate at worst.
this is even worse. If Pete Alonso is not a Met in 2025, how would you feel? Devastated, mildly disappointed, or happy to move on? Interesting.
Well, it depends what you get. I mean, this is just such dumbness. It's like, yeah, if they get like three major prospects, of course you're going to want to make the trade. If you get like some guy from Double A who's got potential and some bad major league player, it depends what the return is. This stuff. This is what the Mets are wasting their effort on. That's to me. Now it's some person in the organization, and I mean Steve Cohen. It's like Steve.
Well,
People want you to spend money and win championships. That's it, Steve. That's it. Spend your money. Nobody cares if you're losing money.
Yep. Well, and they actually ask a question about Steve Cohen. How would you rate Steve Cohen as an owner over his first three seasons? Yes. And they have A through F. Yeah. Yep. How should the Mets handle third base in 2024? Let Brett Beatty sink or swim. Let Beatty start early, but be quick to move on. Platoon Beatty with Mark Vientos, or do you sign Matt Chapman? I mean, I was stunned reading this. I was stunned. I'm like, who authorized this to be sent to the fans?
And this has not made the media, as far as we know, right? The media is not talked about this whatsoever.
Nothing. I haven't heard a word.
Well, Bouk and Zoobie have always kind of come up with these subjects that hit the papers a week or so later. So I'm gonna maybe think this is gonna pop up somewhere. I can't believe. Maybe I'll do a little research on it and see online if people have talking about this, because that does usually make it somewhere or somebody will bring it up. But unless it really, maybe they sent it to a subset of the season ticket holders. Maybe you're one of the lucky ones. Maybe they only did it to like 100 people, John. It's very possible.
Yeah, but the ironic thing out of all this is I'm not even a season ticket holder anymore.
Right, you were, right.
I was, but
right. You did not renew your tickets, so
did not renew them for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons, and that's ultimately what the team, that they don't have to do these dopey surveys, is they could just tell from the renewals of what's happening. I've said it. I'm on the record. I think they're going in the wrong direction. I don't know. I don't know where they're going. You try to you sign guys to huge long-term contracts 1 year, and then next year you're rebuilding the farm system. It's one or the other. You cannot do both. It just doesn't work out that way. It really doesn't, because when you sign, you're signing guys. You're not going to be able to. Unfortunately, it's harder to develop the farm system. Most teams refortify by trading players to refortify their farm system, right? So their international signings, we talked about that recently. That's a good sign that maybe Stearns will help there, but that's long term. Most of these kids are 16 or 17. That's going to do nothing for 24. We'll see how it plays out, John. Anything on the Yankees? We should mention the Yankees because we got Yankee fans listening. Is they've been also relatively quiet lately, correct? Or did they make any moves in the last week or so?
No, very minor moves, very, very minor. But like I said, the Yankees did well with their signings and their trades. I think that they're going all out. I know I mentioned Stroman, but again, I think that they had a better off season than they normally have had in the past. Listen, you can't argue with Juan Soto on your team. Juan Soto is a fantastic player. And people say, oh, look how much they gave up for him. The guy's a superstar, and he's still young. People forget he is young. He's been in the league for a while. You forget that he came in as an 18-year-old. He's been in the league for a while already. But listen, if the if the Mets would have made an offer and given up the talent that the Yankees have, I would not have a problem with that at all. This is a guy that you empty out your farm system for. That's how good he is. That's how good. By the way, last thing. So they had the top 100 prospects And so I just looked at Mets players and former Mets players. Pete Crow Armstrong, for those of you who don't remember that we traded him for Javi Baez,
He's
is
one of your
ranked
favorites. Yes, your favorite
number
trade.
16. Number 16 out of the top 100. The Mets have Jet Williams at 45, Drew Gilbert 53, Acuna at 66, and Ryan Clifford at 97.
Oh, that's
But
what it was. Clifford. It's Gifford and Clifford, not Gifford and Sullivan.
Gilbert,
Right?
Gilbert and Clifford. Gilbert and
Those guys are going to be forever mixed up. There's no way we're going to know if they both. Hopefully, they'll both make the team because were they both in the Verlander trade?
Yes, they were.
They both were in the Verlander trade. Clifford and I forget it, Gilbert. Oh my God, that's what I can't wait for 2025 season for the Mets with the Jets. 2023 actually did not happen, folks. So just so everybody's aware out there, it just didn't happen. So that's why we have Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett, and Joe Douglas, and Aaron Rodgers, and whoever else we're going to come up with. Can't wait to talk about the offseason stuff. That will be coming soon. Super Bowl preview next week. We'll dive into that game, the matchups, what we find interesting, things that we're looking for during that game. So hopefully everybody will join us next week. And hopefully our video works, John. So you're optimistic here that we're actually going to be on YouTube here with our beautiful video tape show this week?
Well, it all depends on our outstanding producer if he's able to do it correctly.
Yeah, do it correctly. Yes, it's going to be a big challenge to get on video. If the show doesn't show up on video, like I said earlier, please continue to listen via Spotify and the LIR websites. So, John, I know we didn't really you want to do it. I'm all in, John, for the rant of the week.
Thanks, Paul. My rant is going to be really, really short, if I could say so, because the NFL, I'm going to talk about the NFL. There's just so much revenue coming into the NFL. Is there any reason, and Paul has brought it up before, about these Peacock games? We've brought it up several times. $110 million was paid by Peacock for the Kansas City game. $110 million. Is there any way that the NFL could say, listen, we want to value our fans and not screw them out of not seeing their favorite teams? And unfortunately, I have to agree with Zoobie that the NFL really does not care about their fans. I would not be surprised next year if they have 2, maybe even 3 playoff games. If they're getting that type of money, that's huge money, Paul. That is huge money. Would you be surprised if they did that?
No, not 3. 2 I would look for, but I had mentioned earlier about the expanded playoff to 8 teams, and then there's no question. And I'm still waiting for that AFC NFC game to go to a neutral site. I'm waiting for that big one to come. It's not going to happen soon, but that's coming, folks. Be prepared for that one.
Oh boy. I hope
that'll be
doesn't happen.
We can rant all we want about the NFL and their gouging the fans and really not caring about them. It's can you get more elitist than Roger Goodell? I mean, this guy, he is just he's the poster child for elitism in sports, and he tries to when he hugs the guys on draft days, and he tries to make himself out to be like the common man, and it is really kind of funny. He's a great salesman. He's done a good job. I think 100 people could do that job. Honestly, probably 1,000 people. Maybe me, you, and I could probably do that job, John. So at least we know if we were doing it, it would be more focused on the fans. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening. So, John, you want to do the thank yous as always, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
Yes. So as always, thank you to our producer, Zach Zubalake, for guiding us through the program. And again, thank you to our loyal listeners. Hopefully, you will see us on YouTube. If not, you could always see us on the hear us on the world famous LIR.com and 927LAR.com. Also, we would like to thank our community partners, Ronald McDonald House, Kids in Seats, and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. See you next week.